And I had this in my house this morning. They're safe. I treat those turkeys really well, except for.
All right, it's 6:30. Let's go ahead and get started. We do have a quorum present. All planning commission members are here. As always, a microphone reminder, when you do speak, please remember to turn the mic on for the record. We do need to adopt the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Mr. Chairman, point
Yes,
of
sir.
order. The minutes for the evening have not been prepared since we had over 4 hours of meeting last time we were together. And so we will move the adoption of the minutes to the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, can we rephrase the adoption of the agenda to exclude the adoption of minutes?
So amended.
All right, all in favor of, seconded, amended, okay. All in favor of the amended motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. As always, before we start, any general public comment on any topic? Okay, thank you. That will let us start with our first case then. Case number SU-07-25-01, Ada Alamu, multiple short-term rentals. This is the second workshop. Ada Alamu has submitted an application for multiple short-term rentals in accordance with Madison County Zoning Ordinance, Article 4-2-1/3-1-22. The subject parcel is identified as Madison County Tax Map 30-5C. The parcel is 15 acres and is zoned A1. Alan, anything to add there?
Very little has changed on this one since the last time that we saw it. We do have other agency comment in your packet that I cannot recall if it was included last time or not. The applicant did receive the response from VDOT that they want to do further evaluation on the entrance to ensure that it meets their needs. And so the applicant, I'm quite sure, is following up on that. The health department responded they do have approved permits for new septic systems for their proposed new short-term units. And standard commentary from the building official that just like everybody who wants to build something, it will follow the requirements of the building code. So beyond that, we have very little to add. The applicant is here tonight, should you wish to ask further questions.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Alan?
One more thing, if I
Yes.
may. There is a draft permit that's in your packet. It's very standard language that closely follows our ordinance anyway, but it's there for you to review. The applicant did receive a copy.
Okay, is that near the beginning of the,
There's a bookmark for you, Mr. Chairman. It is on page, what is that, 5? I can't read it from here. What does that say? I can show you on this one. Page 5 of the PDF, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you, yes. Any other questions for Ms. Nichols? All right. If, yes,
Sorry.
yeah,
The, that existing right-of-way, that's a deeded right-of-way, that's,
It is. And the deed is in your packet.
okay, we have both VDOT response and Health Department response.
We do.
Any further for Alan? All right, any questions for the applicant? Yes, if you would, please come on up and, as always, identify yourself and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Julia Moore. I'm with Shemp Engineering. We're representing the applicant on this project.
Al's got it.
Okay. I'll say one more time. I'm Julia Moore. I'm with Shemp Engineering, and we're representing the applicant on this project. And I'm Ida Alamu. I'm the applicant.
Thank you. I just have two questions, if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. One, the management company, whenever the rentals are active, will that be yourself on site, or will it be a third party?
So I won't be on site, but I'll be managing it.
Okay, and who will be your on-site? I'm thinking just for emergencies and things like that.
We don't plan on having someone on site. The current short-term rental we have, we don't have anyone on site.
Okay,
I think we'll just send like a handyman or,
okay.
Yeah.
The second question I have is on this easement, have you been in contact with that neighbor that you have I know it's deeded, but are they aware that there will be traffic coming through here?
Yes,
They are, okay.
Yeah, they know we've applied for short-term rental and for the special use permit.
And they're aware that you will have guests driving through, maybe from other parts of the country, the Madison, driving through?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and that conversation went well?
Yeah, they
I wonder-
didn't seem too concerned.
They didn't? Okay.
Yeah.
That was my only really question or concern on the whole thing, so, thank you.
I guess that particular, is where all those cars and stuff are parked along, right there in Banco, where there's sometimes an excavator and a tractor and a couple things sitting, is that where the entrance is?
Yes, yeah, but that is their land, so we don't really have guests parking there, and we don't intend to use that as parking.
Okay, on this application, how many total short-term rentals are we looking at? You've got the house and two,
And it will be 2 additional, so 3 in total.
okay. That partially completed building, is that part of the application or is that not part of
Not at
this?
this current moment. no.
Okay, so if you could proceed further with that, that's a separate situation.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The draft of the special use permit, based on previous conversation, states that if the applicant were to complete that home and obtain a CO from the building official, then they could utilize that additional dwelling as a part of this permit. So
Okay,
for your
that's-
discussion, it's certainly a draft, but it seemed reasonable based on our previous conversations.
All right, that's actually what I was trying to get at, so that is part of this application then, okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you then, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, any public comment on this case? Any public comment? Okay, apparently not. If not, let's move on to the next case. This is Case number SU-05-25-02, Full Life Journey Farm, First Workshop. Reggie Lipscomb is seeking a special use permit in accordance with Madison County zoning ordinance 14-18 to operate an event venue. The subject property is identified as 4299 West Hoover Road and further identified as Madison County Tax Map 23-88. The parcel is 42.86 acres and is zoned A1. Alan, anything to add there?
So, a little context on this application. So the applicant for this one, pardon me, I actually want to get up so we can get the map up so we can talk about the same thing at the same time. So the applicant has this property out on Hoover Road, and some years ago, it was about 3 years ago, let's say we did a preliminary development review committee on this one as a proposal, and then it never went anywhere. So the applicant was previously operating an RV park, or as we would call it, let me use the right nomenclature, a campground, perhaps? It's Article 15, a travel trailer or camper park on the site. So on here, you've got a dwelling that is the applicant's residence, you've got a barn, and there's a pond back here, and the RVs are kind of circled around the pond. Since we require a special use permit for this activity, we did receive a complaint in the zoning office, and I reached out to Mr. Lipscomb, who was going through the process of getting permitted. We have waited this long to hear the case because we did have some non-permitted septic components that he's been working on getting remedied with the health department. And my understanding is at this time the engineering is completed for the site. He has a complete application in front of the health department and is awaiting what seems to be imminent approval for this, let's say at least for the wastewater for these sites. Before he constructs it, he wants to make sure that he can receive this permit before he sinks the additional dollars into that cost. But what we're essentially looking at here, let's say we're looking at a small event venue with occasional events and overnight parking for RVs. I will let your questions for his vision be directed to the applicant.
I've got one for Alan. My mic is way up. So are we also gonna do a special use permit for a campground? And not an event venue? Are we gonna run into here? Cause 2031 says that if you have a campground, you have to have a special use permit for that as well.
Which ordinance are you citing, Mr. Snyder?
20-31.
20-31, let me look at it with you here.
The very last sentence says, basically, a special use permit shall be obtained in every case. So if you're, what I'm trying to get at, I don't think that a campground is gonna be basically blanketed underneath a event venue.
So I think that we have precedent for doing it that way, let's say, which is why we pursued this option. We discussed this in preliminary development review committee. Because of the activities that the applicant is proposing, just a straight campground didn't seem to be the best option, and so we recommended that he move forward as an event venue, I believe is what we came up with, if I'm recalling that correctly. So that's why we went the avenue we went. We certainly have had recent cases that have had event venues with campgrounds as a part of the permit. So I think that the purpose of having a campground and an SUP here is not that it couldn't apply under a different umbrella of a special use permit, especially when specifically cited, but rather that you couldn't operate one without any special use permit. If you see that differently, certainly I'm open to ideas on how you'd like to see permitting done, but, I mean, this is the concept that the applicant's pursuing, so however we want to structure it is okay.
So then, in nowhere does the special use permit tell you that, what the specifications are for a campground. So if you're gonna start citing, the ordinance and whatnot, and holding them to how the space areas and everything that goes along with a campground, it needs to be filed underneath the special use permit for a campground, and not a special event venue. That's my thought, anyway.
Okay. So-
Others may see it differently.
I mean, the last special use permit we approved did not have those provisions that you are proposing.
I know, and I didn't agree with it either.
That's fair.
I agree with Mike on this.
I
Okay.
didn't think the last one we did was the correct way to do that.
What would you propose in this case? And Betsy, I would invite you to engage the applicant on this discussion, but, no, we approved as a part of a special use permit for an event venue for Madison Hills Events, a campground for vendor camping to be a part of that. I suppose that is the difference, is that's more like staff housing, could fall under that provision than for the public. So,
Well, yeah, but I don't think, I haven't seen any exceptions in any of the ordinances that says staff can camp there and not follow the.
staff housing is a part of the event venue ordinance.
That may be, I haven't seen that. I'm happy for you to tell me where that is, but that's not in this particular case right now, anyway.
It is not in this particular case. So if as a committee, you would like to, Betsy, you would like to encourage the applicant to go a different route, Betsy, certainly recommend that.
The event venue does include very specifically things like glamping and some other types of camping. I don't think it's got specifically the travel trailer facilities like this is going to be. Mike, is that what you're kind of aiming at?
Yeah.
This goes beyond what the event venue contains, yeah.
And that's just the way that I'm looking at it. I may be off on this, but
Yeah.
that's just the way I'm looking at it.
Mr. Chairman, if I,
Yes.
and I'll reserve this question for the applicant, but again, I think there's two distinct differences between an RV that's coming and going that hooks up to septic and then is still on wheels. And then, like, for instance, the case at the end of Meander, where those are technically RV park models, but they're gonna be permanently
Yeah.
adhered. So I mean, I think that, and based on my recollection from the PDRC, and again, I'll address the applicant when he's ready. It seems like maybe the number has grown on this one for RVs. I thought at that time it was maybe one or two. So I'll reserve some questions, I guess, when the applicant's ready.
Any further questions for Alan before we? All right, if the applicant would approach the microphone, identify yourself, and we'll talk to you from there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reggie Lipscomb.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Lipscomb?
Mr. Lipscomb, again, we spoke, clearly several months ago at the PDRC. Would you mind giving us, again, a brief summary on kind of your goal and the vision and what's evolved since the time of that meeting?
Sure. The goal and vision is the same, to create a space where we can focus on agriculture, raising livestock, doing training sessions, learning sessions, et cetera. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, things of that nature wrapped around agriculture. So part of that is, I believe you guys call it in I forget exactly what it's called, but I can't remember the exact name that you guys
Event
use
venue?
for it. What's that?
Event venue?
No, it wasn't
Comprehensive
an event
plan?
venue.
Comprehensive plan.
Comprehensive plan, that's what I was looking for, thank you, sir. But a part of that falls under what we call, or what we agree that is called agritourism. So that's the vision for what we do, or what we're proposing that we want to do. You made a comment, Mr. Whitman, about it looks like things have moved up in scope. Initially, when we started this endeavor, which Mr. Nichols referenced, it was up to 3 sites that we were looking to do. So that definitely has scoped up. And the reason why that was that way is because initially when we, looked into this endeavor, we were told, hey, you can do up to 3 sites without having to go through any permitting process, which is how we got here. But we later found out that that information that we received was not accurate. So now we're pushing down the avenue of doing the permitting and et cetera. And we're, like I mentioned before, we are not trying to create a huge campground or anything of that nature. So the numbers did grow up to 7, but that's inclusive of the number 3 already. So we're not going over that number. That's not the goal at this point. But the other thing is we want to keep it low key, and it's not to create a campground where there's a bunch of, activities and all this other kind of stuff that's drawing a lot of traffic. It's more so to provide a spot where when people come to do training sessions, et cetera, they have a place to park their RV and stay and do overnight stays for camping, glamping, et cetera, but also be involved in the training stuff that we do. For an example, we did a session that was wrapped around we called it Forage Experience. So you go out, you learn what the different forages are for the livestock and things of that nature that we're growing, not as a crop, but just growing as just part of our pasture for the livestock. And that was in combination with Virginia State University and Virginia Tech. So that's kind of how we got here, but happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
I guess going back to what we discussed earlier, and I do remember now the 3, and it was because VDH was in the room as well, and I think that language actually needs to be clarified on the VDH side, but I digress. All of these will be for profit, though, whenever you're hosting these events. These are paid for sites, or are these going to be family? I mean, remember we talked about church at one point and communal friends. You will make a profit on some of these sites at the time. You will charge a fee for these?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes. So part of what we discussed at the last meeting was my faith is in Christ, and so a lot of the stuff that we're doing, it's all, based on that type of thing. So the events that we were talking about previously were ministry type events. Many of those will not be any kind of charge. It'll be if somebody wants to donate because of something we're doing, they're fine. However, if people come in to, to camp or do whatever, then yeah, there will be a fee for that.
Okay.
In fact, there will definitely be a fee for that. We've been paying taxes on what I think is called the TOC, which is a temporary occupancy tax. So we've been doing that already, and just plan to continue to do it as required.
And then I guess the occupancy on the barn, the event barn, what is that? And I guess what would be like your largest event of the year, and then what would be your typical run-of-the-mill, kind of agricultural training, maybe sponsor or co-sponsored event?
So typically, when we do what's called a field day, when you just go out and visit farms, do training, the numbers could be anywhere from 10 people to maybe 20 people. It just depends on what's going on. But as far as the barn is concerned, well, first of all, I didn't build the barn. The barn was existing when I purchased the property. So we're looking at modifying it so we can, entertain the guests when they come. I don't know, inside the barn, 50 people, 100 people, I don't know, right? If everybody's standing around, it could easily be 100 people in the barn. It's a pretty sizable barn. But that's what it'll be used for.
Do you have parking for all that, for 100 people?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have plenty of space they can park.
Approximately, what's the size of this barn?
50 by 80.
50 by 80?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What kind of structure is it? Is it a pole barn? Is it a
Yeah, it's not steel, it's a pole barn.
pole barn?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I guess, let me just make sure I make it clear, it's not like a tree pole barn, it's, manufactured, processed wood pole barn.
All right, so like a Morton building or something?
Correct,
like
yes,
that?
sir.
Okay. Is it largely open inside, or is it
Oh, it's wide open,
completely open inside?
yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. And so as far as the modification / retrofitting, the things that we're thinking about doing is, making a space for storage, right? For tables or chairs, anything of that nature that we might need. A slop room for, cleaning up, washing your hands, putting a, you know, restroom facility in there, you know, typical stuff that would be in a barn. But we do want to use it as an event center, and we want to make sure the facilities are adequate and appropriate for anybody that would use the space.
Has Jamie or the building department like looked at it at all to give you an idea on occupancy whenever it is converted and ready for commercial use, or?
So, Jamie has come by, he's seen it, but to look at it from that viewpoint, I don't know. When we were looking at it, it was just from electrical permitting, which
Okay.
we, you know, we got the permit and we installed electric.
I get, Mr. Nichols, a question. If it's an agricultural building and there are agriculturally focused field days and events, would it have to
At
be?
the, at this point, if we're doing an event venue,
It'll have to go to
we
commercial.
have consistently held that it is not exempt agriculturally for commercial purposes. So what would be required of Mr. Lipscomb is a change of use. So he would fill out a piece of paper and ask the building official to consider a change of use for the building. Depending on how the building is now, maybe it meets the requirements. Maybe it doesn't, and changes are required to, you know, for it to meet a different load requirement. These can happen at any time. It's just a matter of, it's not a discretionary question, it's a factual thing. So if Mr. Lipscomb were to pursue this route, whatever the building code requirements are to make it a commercial building, he would have to follow.
Okay. And then tax use, would that be, if it's an agricultural building now, would that be a rollback into commercial? Should it?
I do not know how this portion of real property is taxed now, and I do not know if the Commissioner of Revenue could disclose or not in specific cases. He speaks in more general terms for privacy rules, but the applicant may be able to tell you. Or,
Do you understand the question? Are you in ag use right now? or
We're
land
in ag
use?
use,
You're in land
correct.
use? And I guess my question is, I'll just state this as a hypothetical, is if this is converted into an event venue that's commercial, I wonder if it would impact your tax status and land use and go to commercial taxes, you'd be,
So I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, I haven't, I don't know. But I do think it's worth discussing on like the ultimate build out, right, of how it's actually gonna be developed. We have ideas, however, to be as prudent as we can, you know, we don't wanna make any drastic changes that are gonna negatively affect, you know, finances and taxes and all that kind of thing. So gotta weigh the, you know, weigh the pros and the cons, but the idea is to use it for an event space.
Speaking of being prudent, have you talked to Department of Health about the idea of putting the restroom facilities in the barn?
Yes, sir. In fact,
Okay.
all the paperwork has been submitted. Application is literally sitting on their, well, somewhere in their office.
Good.
The last information that we got was they're waiting for a technical advisor to review. But yeah, in the application, it includes, you know, a restroom facility, you know, use and things of that nature. They're all a part of it. The drain field and all that stuff is accounted for.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Point of privilege. I did receive an email about a month ago from the Health Department that Mr. Lipscomb had submitted his full engineered package. I do know that they're running behind at this time in some of their review to no fault of their own. So I don't know how quickly we'd be able to see an approval come through, but I do know that he's taken all the steps to get all the engineering done for the site as presented.
So that's the RV sites as well as the barn then?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the full scope.
Okay. Different topic, right quick. I see here, there's apparently, you've been working with VDOT about 25-foot reservation along the property frontage and entrance modification. Can you kind of fill us in on that?
Sure. Mr. Nichols, if you could pull the picture up. It should be in the file under Notesville Design.
Yes. Is this the one you want?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, according to Mr. Nguyen, I think is his name at VDOT, he said that typically the Department of Transportation, they have to request that property be deeded over to them when there's something to be done with the driveway. The other option is just doing what's called a reserve, which is basically, we're not gonna deed it, but we're basically agreeing to say, hey, we're not gonna build a structure within, I think it's the 30-foot guideline that you have from the center of the road onto the property, that would end up causing VDOT any kind of money down the road if they needed to do some type of road work expansion or anything of that nature. According to the documents, if you look at where the driveway goes in, we've got we've got a 45-foot culvert that VDOT is saying, hey, everything looks fine. The only thing that we're gonna ask you to do is come out and fill the rest of the space in with some gravel to basically just get rid of the grass. I don't really understand why, but that's what they said. So I said, that's fine.
I got a question, Steve. On your RVs, will they hook directly to the sewer, or will you have a dump station?
Right now, the design is to go directly to this, the new drain field that's in application with Department of Health.
So you have connections for the RVs?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No problem.
Question, I'm sorry, this probably goes to Mr. Nichols and maybe council. I haven't researched this and I apologize. But does the proposed event venue that we're seeking application for, does that interfere at all with the Right to Farm Act?
Refer to you on this one, Hannah.
Is he giving up rights that he otherwise would have by going this route?
Short answer is I don't know, but I'm happy to look into that between now and the second workshop. It's a good question.
If I could add, my understanding is that I know we're calling it an event center, but many of the activities that we're looking to do, my understanding was that they fall under a by right use based on farming, but there's not a by right use permitting application, right? So it has to be under event space, is my understanding.
Other questions for the applicant?
So, it says in your write-out here that you would have weddings.
Say again?
You would have weddings? You got
Sure.
listed in here things that you
We'd
would
be
want?
happy to host a wedding, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm just wondering if we ought to, when we start looking at outside events like that, do we need to start putting proffers in there for outside amplified music and that kind of things?
It's first workshop, so I didn't draft anything, but
Yeah, I'm
that
just
kind
asking.
of language is typical in these activities all through the county. So, I'm certainly willing to write down as a draft whatever you'd like for consideration by the applicant and board.
If you wouldn't mind, Mr. Snyder, could you repeat the question?
I was speaking of if you were gonna have weddings.
Yes, sir.
That we normally have, proffers that you don't have outside amplified music after a certain time,
Okay.
and things of that nature.
Oh, okay,
Make
okay.
sure that the neighbors aren't being disturbed over
Got it.
lights as well and that kind of thing.
Got it. Yep, understood. So, and I can actually speak to that. We're not night owls, right? That's one thing. But also, we want to be disrespectful of light population, right? So, any event that we would have, my understanding is if you have, I think it's termed a large-scale event, you have to apply for another permit. I think once the event space permit is already done, you don't have to do that as an individual thing. But when there's an event where, a bunch of traffic might be coming in, that you would have to say, hey, by the way, here's what we're gonna be doing to plan for emergency services, like with the fire department, police department, just to make them aware. That's my understanding.
While we're speaking of neighbors, from recent experience, have you had contact with all of your neighbors? They understand what you're planning to do? I mean, can be a major stumbling block going forward if you do not have the support of your neighbors, so.
Yeah, so I can't speak for my neighbors. I don't know that I have anyone's support. I can definitely tell you that I've talked with multiple neighbors. So, yeah, whether or not I have their support, there's one neighbor that has said they do not support it. But, you know, there's other neighbors that say, hey, it's your land, you do what you want to do. I like the way you're doing things and, you know, have at it.
That's probably the best you can hope for, but you have in fact discussed this with your neighbors. So
I
that's-
have,
Yes,
yeah.
good, okay, thank you. Other questions?
Steve, I don't have a question, but I have a comment. How many event venues are we gonna approve before we see one?
You mean before one actually works?
Before one actually comes to fruition? I mean, I see the list getting longer and I never see the venue yet.
I guess we'll
I'll be
have
happy
to
to
just
be the
wait for
first.
experience, yeah.
Well, you
No,
will
no.
be right now.
No qualms out of me.
Mr. Lipscomb, I did just want to draw to attention, one of the things on my list was, it does not look like you're getting any land use deductions as far as your taxes are concerned, which is public record here posted
Yeah,
within
yeah, that's
the
right.
packet. And so I was surprised not to see that, given the obvious agricultural appearance of the property.
Yeah, me
And
too.
so
I'm not sure why it's not happening.
I would talk with Mr. Daniels,
Okay.
or, yeah.
Trust me, when we got the bill, I was like, doesn't really make sense, but
I typically see a line item
Right.
where there's a deduction
yeah, yeah. Thank you.
for reference.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, and I think I'm about to go down a rabbit hole. And probably Mr. Wright will throw something at me here. And again, I wish we'd have caught this at PRDC a little bit more. I guess your intentions, here's where I'm going. I'm thinking now it's almost more of an RV application, because if you're doing by right agricultural events, then you should be able to do those by right, but you do it on your RV park. However, it seems like the complexities come with the weddings and other paid-for-profit events that are going to be held in the event center outside of agriculture. Have you thought deeply about how many, I'll call them commercial, is that the correct terms, Mr. Nichols and Mr. Wright, commercial events?
Sorry, I was referencing something else. Would you please ask me again?
Commercial events would be something that's non-agriculture, is that the appropriate term for the record?
Good enough for this
Good enough, okay,
discussion.
good. So, commercial events, how much of your business do you expect to do that, or do you want to do that?
We have no desire to promote weddings, right? So if we'll look at that as a commercial event, we have no desire. Our goal is, you know, if people hear about what we're doing, they hear about capabilities, we're happy to entertain it, right? But we're not gonna say, oh, by the way, we wanna do a bunch of weddings. That's not really the goal, right? If someone that we know, they wanna have a wedding there, again, according to my understanding of the by right thing, why wouldn't we be able to do it, right? So, you know, that's just kind of my thing. I wouldn't, if one of you all said, hey, I wanna come to your space and do a wedding, I wouldn't look at that as a commercial thing. I would look at that as somebody in the neighborhood, they know me, I have space, they wanna do a wedding, have a wedding.
And there,
You know, I
there
think-
are some restrictions, that number and frequency throughout the year, and then, as you mentioned earlier, when you get into size, and unique events that are larger, then there are, you know, some complexities of that require additional phone calls and things like that. But
Sure.
It's just, I guess.
So if you're looking, I can give you, like, if you're saying, hey, how many large events type of thing, is that the question you're kind of getting at?
And you may not know that now, and it may evolve as business evolves, but I guess the bigger question was, is the core competency of your event side of your business plan agriculture, or is it commercial?
Agriculture. Yep, agriculture for sure. And I can give you a number right now that if it had to be a number of a large event, right now it would be one. Because that's literally a big gathering that we have with friends and family. We invite them all down to the farm and say, we're gonna hang out.
But is that paid, or is that with friends
No.
and family?
No,
That's-
yeah, it's no, you don't pay to come. You just come to enjoy the property.
Okay.
Going down another rabbit hole, since Zach started it. The wedding venue businesses and things like that typically have a large social media presence. Do you work that way, or is your business model more word of mouth than it is social media?
So it's definitely more word of mouth, but do we have social media?
Yeah.
We absolutely do.
You do.
In fact, I invite you guys to visit it. Yeah, feel free. It's Full Life Journey Farm. well, that's a website, but it's Full Life Journey Farm. If you look on Instagram, you can see a bunch of, things that we do.
But it's not your intention to become a vast wedding venue or?
No, no, we're not trying to be, and this is not a knock against Walnut Hill, I think it's called, or Walnut Hall. Beautiful place, but we're not trying to be that type of place. And I think for those of you that were here, my daughter wants to be a vet. This is how we got into this space. And so because of that, we're like, you know what? God created this space and we want to share it with people. And it's just kind of matriculated to what it is, and now the whole permitting process and things of that nature. So we would like to see it, we would definitely like to see it sustain itself, but with the wraparound agriculture. That's the drive. In fact, the people that come to our place, they come because of agriculture. Like they've heard about, oh, wow, you guys have a farm. I don't know anybody with a farm, right? And so there has been, let's say, and I'm just throwing a number out there, but let's say there's been 100 people to come to our place. 98% of them don't live in Madison, right? And what I think is a beautiful thing is every time they leave money, right? I'm not kidding, right? They're going to the grocery store, they're going to the gas station, they're going to visit other places, they're visiting wineries, so, it's kind of a win-win when you.
Yeah, that's
in my book.
something the Board of Supervisors is always in favor of, yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Carpenter?
Yes, sir.
If I can,
Yes.
Mr. Smith's question has got me reading. I'll can send this around to the Planning Commission, but I'm not convinced he's going to need a special use permit for this. I think it's a good question about whether or not it's going to, maybe he does to Mr. Snyder's point on the RV trailer sites. But agritourism, as it's broadly defined, does include lodging on site for people that are given the opportunity for agritourism. So I'm not sure if he's even going to need this special use permit. But I'll send that around for everybody to sort of consume and compare to what we've got here.
So, Mr. Wright, what would be the difference between having a campground and not? Because we certainly issued these things to
Right.
a campground. So if people would have came in and said, I don't want to I'm going to call an event venue and I don't have to get a campground permit anymore.
Right, and the event venue has got a certain provision in it which includes the word lodging. And then when you say campground, what do you mean? Do you mean just a place that somebody can put up a tent, or do you mean like an RV pad site that's got hookups? It's clear as mud.
Well, I mean, the definition was what I read earlier. I mean, when you say campground, I mean, it's certainly in here.
Sure, but I think we even modify that to different types, right? I mean, primitive campgrounds and trailer park.
Yeah, the event venue is designed as an umbrella permit to allow several things. I think this is the reason it was originally developed. And one of the reasons it doesn't get real specific about the lodging, when I was involved in some of this when we were doing it, is we did not want to be specific about what kind of lodging we were talking about. So, it's not to exclude agritourism, it's to include it as part of one of the things that can be done with an event venue. I think it was the intent of it. So that's another kind of flip side of the coin as far as the agritourism. That's something that we'll probably have to deal with.
I
Deciding on,
do
yeah.
believe that it is 100% worth unpacking. And so Mr. Wright has an Attorney General opinion that we're going to review.
And I'm not looking to short circuit this conversation, but I just did want to make everybody aware of it. So,
Okay. All right, climbing back out of that rabbit hole. Any other questions for the applicant?
I do.
Yes,
So you don't live there, right?
That's correct.
So when you have these events, however often you are, you'll be coming in. So this isn't where somebody can just drive up.
Oh, no.
Off the street.
Absolutely
You're gonna
not.
have an event it's either said somewhere that we're doing this weekend.
I think as long as you're
That's
consistent
correct.
about it.
So anybody that comes to the property, they only come by invitation. So for an example, this, and I'm gonna use this as a crazy example, but this is not a 7-Eleven. You can't just see it driving by and say, oh, I'm gonna stop, and can I stay? Doesn't work that way. That's not the goal, that's not how it's gonna be. The way that we, our goal is, again, this is, while we don't live there, you might as well say we're there. I'm down here 3-4 times a week, right? So I'm here, I have a very good presence in the area. But again, when people come, I'll be there to meet them. One of the family members will be there to meet them. If there's an event going on, one of us will probably be around. Are we gonna be required to? No, that's not the way we're trying to develop this, right? Because we're not trying to, staff it and say, hey, you're gonna be here. No, that's not what we wanna do. This is a space that we just wanna open up when people wanna come and learn about agriculture, hang out with their family, hang out with their friends. We wanna have a space where they can do it, be comfortable. The other thing was, and I probably did this to my, maybe I shouldn't have done it this way, because initially I was gonna go down the campground route, because I'm actually part of an RV club, right? So my friends have RVs. So at any given time, I could call my friend and say, hey, come hang out. And I'm not kidding, 50 or 100 RVs could show up, because I just know a lot of people. Now, that being said, that's not gonna be like the goal, which is why we're at the 7, RV site thing. But I think that's how we got down this road of this being called a campground, when really it's not. This is a farm that has camping capability. And if you don't believe me, you can feel free to drive by and see all the livestock out there.
Speaking of driving by, since you're not there all the time, do you have security arrangements of some kind? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you,
Oh, yeah, I've got, yeah.
okay, because in today's atmosphere, we wouldn't want somebody deciding, oh, I'm gonna take my RV there and just park for a month or two, and,
Yeah, no, doesn't work that way.
okay.
Not at all.
Any further questions? Comments, discussion? Okay, we apparently have a very open question about the agritourism question, but Right to Farm Act, okay. Which and again, I'm not sure the two things are exclusive of each other, but we'll have to make some decision about that, I guess.
And one of the other things, and I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman's name that made the comment about agritourism, but one of the things that I had noticed in one of the articles was that, again, lodging is allowed, right, for let's say, support staff, farm labor, that type of thing. So will there ever be anybody there living on the property to help out? Hopefully, right? We would love to grow the agricultural portion of it and have somebody that can be there, tend to the animals on a more regular basis, that type of thing. So again, my understanding is that falls under the whole agritourism and lodging and support staff, et cetera. Now, when I say be there full-time, meaning when there's an event, they would have a place that they can come and, and reside, if you will, which would be your overnight spot. Now, whether or not they brought their own RV, right? If they do, great. If they don't, we have an RV that we could say, hey, this is gonna be a spot dedicated for, whoever would fulfill that use or that need.
I got one last question.
Yes.
So when you're talking about doing this educational stuff of farming and stuff, but is that you? Are you the farmer that's gonna educate people? You gonna have-
Sometimes. Most of the times with our field days, they're a representative from Virginia Tech or Virginia State or some other club that, has there's a specialty, right? Or they know this particular thing that we're gonna be talking about. So not always me. I'm still learning. But I definitely am willing to teach people when they come to listen. I love it.
Mr. Chairman, just sort of a little, just general comment and discussion. Mr. Lipscomb, and I've been out to your farm. It's beautifully maintained. I know you put a lot of work in, especially as a partially absentee.
Yeah.
owner, I believe the house was abandoned or in some state of disrepair when you purchased it.
100%. We
Yeah.
had to take it down to the dirt.
Yeah. So, it's always good to see stuff like that come back to life in Madison as opposed to just committing itself to the dirt, so.
Well, and let me say, because I said take it to the dirt, but
Yeah.
what, and this is amazing to me, because this is the first time I've ever bought any land, any of this kind of stuff, right? So when we started to, what we thought was gonna be, remodel the house, and we started taking down drywall, we realized, man, all these logs were hewn from trees on the property. I had no idea, right? And then we saw exposed logs in the room, so we were actually able to preserve what, according to documentation, was the 1870 log cabin portion of the house that had been built on over some years, right? So it has a special place to us, you know what I mean? And if you ever came by, you could see, like, this was the house, and there was a stamp in the concrete, this was done this year, and it's like, it means something to us. This is not just, some place to buy and just do whatever. It's so thank you,
Yep.
because we tried to preserve it for that reason.
Certainly,
For
it's,
that reason.
yeah, you gotta have some guts to do that sometimes,
Yeah.
or be in too far before you realize what's entailed, but, and when I was out there, I think we talked to goats quite a bit, because we were
Yeah.
both kind of in the
That's right.
goat farming business on a
Yeah.
minor scale.
That's right.
But, so, I just want to say, when you get it, a lot of that, when I originally looked at this proposal, recently in this packet, I mean, I know the activities there are agriculturally based, from what I'd experienced a couple years ago. And it seemed like a lot of what you were doing was leaning in that direction. And then there's also other things that kind of get a little gray. I wasn't sure as far as the use of that building with larger scale. I'm not sure how it works with like religious gatherings, weddings. Some are permitted per year, within
Sure.
the confines of that ordinance by right. And so it sounds like with the direction you're leaning, and I'm sure Alan and Mr. Wright will give you some possible direction or feedback. You're pretty close to, if it's not by right, possibly, exploring just a little minor changes in what you are looking to do or how something is worded, and then obviously, adhering to that
Yeah.
to fit within those confines of agritourism.
Sure. So, and again, this is, words are super important, right? But when we say the barn's gonna be used for an event venue space, literally, the reason the barn is being included in this conversation is because of its existing structure, right? I read through some paperwork that said, hey, if you're gonna have this, you need to have this, which was, you gotta have a restroom. Well, in my mind, I'm like, well, I don't wanna build a new restroom, have a barn, I can section off this and put a restroom. So when it comes down to an event venue, would that be a spot where somebody would get married in the barn? I don't think anybody would ever get married in the barn, right? The idea is to use the land, right? The barn comes in place because of the bathroom and those types of things. However, we have had a bunch of people out there and we were just hanging out and then it started raining. Well, guess what? Everybody ran into the barn and we stood around on, wood chips. Because that's how the barn is, right?
And I guess I'll expand, if I may. I think probably most of us at this panel up here don't like political red tape, but, there's a necessity to have some guardrails. And I guess probably what we're, trying to navigate now is in the future. I mean, we want to do this correctly for you now, because in the future, let's say you do start realizing that you can make good money doing commercial events in that barn. And if they start happening and it's not permitted, then of course the county has the right to come and intervene on that. So we just want to make sure that whatever your future endeavors are, even if they evolve and expand different from what the thought is tonight, that you're covered as well. So that's, I guess the only other thing I'd say to keep in mind is we may not know what the future holds, but if it takes you down a different path, you may.
I want to be ready for the different path.
All right.
That's the goal.
That's good to know then.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank
and
you all.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have a lot of public here. Any public comment on this application? Just thinking, do we have anybody online? No? Okay. It's real quiet tonight. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, next case is case number ZOA-05-25-03, ordinance amendment. This is a second workshop. The Board of Supervisors has directed the Planning Commission to consider removal, modification, or retention of Madison County zoning ordinance 5-2-1 and 5-1-1. Alan, you want to add anything to that?
A point of clarity on this one, Mr. Chairman. In the Article 5-2-1 requires a special use permit for livestock on lots less than 2 acres. The portion that is regarding Article 5-1-1 would not be the entire ordinance being stricken, but rather the livestock on lots less than 2 acres portion. Nobody intends to come after agriculture or gardens in the R1 district. So just a point of clarity on that. Otherwise, we're simply continuing our discussion based on the 3 options we have to recommend maintaining the ordinance as written, recommending to revise or amend it, or to strike the 5-2-1. I have written an opinion that is in your packet as to why I think we should strike it, but I've said my piece on that there.
Okay, thank you. And I am hopeful that we can come to some conclusions on this tonight, since there's really only the 3 options that Alan's mentioned. Make it a by right, keep it as it is, or amend the ordinance with additional restraints. The one thing that I would like to just comment on right up front, if you look on, let's see which, anyway, under Alan's information, he has the statement about regulatory redundancy. And it turns out that Madison County Animal Control currently has the authority to enforce standards regarding animal welfare, nuisance conditions, et cetera, et cetera. So it may be that trying to add a bunch of restrictions or conditions to an existing ordinance just for the purpose of animal control is redundant. So, does anyone have any question for Alan at this point on this?
I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
Alan, I appreciate this, thank you very much. But on the regulatory redundancy and reliance on animal control, we know the situation that's kind of brought this to bay right now. How responsive is animal control?
I did ask animal control the question, and when they receive a complaint, they do go and observe the site and the animal conditions. I am quite sure that they do take their job very seriously. We've had a number of conversations about how their duties are performed, and I've learned a lot about animal control through the process and how VDAX regulates some of their functions.
What authority do they have to take action?
They have authority granted in the Chapter 6, Animals and Fowl of our Code of Ordinance, as well as state authority regarding the care of animals. So they are enabled by state code to take action. Hannon, you look like you got additional commentary.
And they are law enforcement. I mean, they can go and apply for warrants, search warrants to go and look if they've got enough evidence to justify it.
Do we have a definition of what constitutes nuisance?
I don't know that we have it in our ordinance. We'll see what the state code says on it, because it's probably relevant for discussion.
It's kind of what brought us here.
Further questions for Ellen?
And it's gonna be a
I'm looking
super
up nuisance real quick here.
fact-specific, too.
It will. Do you want commentary on that one? Look, well, we're trying to settle this thing. Let me see what the state code has to say. Give me just a moment, please.
Mr. Chairman, while Mr. Nichols is looking,
Yes.
again, I noticed too that this doesn't state livestock versus animals. I mean, if a neighbor has 20 cats in the window, does that constitute nuisance as well? Or are we kind of looking at this through the lens of livestock animals?
Can I piggyback on what Zach is saying? Where's the definition of what we're calling livestock? Is there?
We have a definition in our ordinance. It's in
where-
chapter
I'm
20.
looking for it. And is there a number with that?
So you got a link on your iPad there, let's say to the zoning ordinance, and if you go to it, it is Article 20-107. If you give me just a moment here, let's say I'm going to find Jim's question about nuisances really quick before I get sidetracked.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Dogs and cats can be as big a nuisance as animals, and livestock. Absolutely.
Well, hence the root cause of, the problem, yeah.
So dogs and cats, it says here, are not livestock. Like horses or ponies, used for pleasure riding, dogs and cats are excluded.
I think chickens are livestock, but fowl is not. So you could fill up your yard with
But it
peacocks.
says poultry,
Yeah,
whenever you wanna say poultry, but
yeah, poultry, but
All right.
poultry is,
Mr. Smith,
yes.
to answer your question, the term nuisance includes but is not limited to dangerous or unhealthy substances which have escaped, spilled, been released, or which have been allowed to accumulate in on any place in all unsafe. I'll put it up here because it's easier to do it that way. We can all look at it together instead of listening to me sound it out. Second paragraph here.
So along with this, do we have a number of how many, if we're gonna allow this? I mean, how many
Well,
cows or swine or goats can be on
when we discussed this with Mr. Weekly, Mr. Cave, Mr. Collier, and I had a conversation with one of the leaders of VDAX, and they do not have hard numbers for how many goats per acre or how many cows per acre because the level of care makes a difference. So you can have a high level of care in a smaller space and animals are perfectly healthy and have what they need. And so while, a variety of educational institutions and parties over the years have adopted guidelines of how many animals per acre, there certainly is a certain number of animals per acre for land use qualifications and what have you. We were discouraged strongly from addressing care, but rather the simple keeping of animals. And so if you start regulating animals per acre, and you're considering their care, that's outside of the scope of what we're supposed to do for zoning purposes. But certainly, I am not a livestock expert, but simply trying to take a common sense approach that we have regulatory oversight through the animal control officers who do regularly act and monitor these things.
So one of my points would be that before we just strike this and allow it, should we have some guidelines of what that might be?
What guidelines specifically are you thinking?
Well, for example, if somebody had goats, and they're under 2 acres, should they be allowed to have 20 goats there? Or should we say you can have up to 3 or 4? But if we don't put a number on it, that could get out of hand, and that's why we're here.
That's kind of where I think that our opinions diverge, is because let's take it to the extreme. let's say that the zoning ordinance allows for 100 goats per acre. And logically, we can think, well, that's too much, right? But the purpose is that in the zoning ordinance, we cannot regulate care, and the animal control officer would observe such a situation that animals were not well cared for, provided that, and then would take the appropriate remedies by issuing citations, let's say warrants for the removal of the animals, et cetera, if they're not being cared for. So in a way, Betsy, any number that we impose here is arbitrary, because obviously 100 is too many, or maybe it's not, who knows? But, then if you do an artificially small number, if you say 1 per acre, and that's not enough, you certainly can care for more than 1 goat on an acre of land. So, and individuals' level of care for their animals will dictate what is acceptable in a given space. So that's really my argument, is that since we can't regulate care, but rather the keeping, and generally speaking, we are a rural county. So, what brought us this one is Mr. Fuchs' application for a special use permit on one of the smaller parcels. That property's on a country road. It is on a country road, a couple houses down. It's the same size property in A1. That is not a problem to keep goats. A couple houses the other way, it's R1 on a small lot. It's a problem to keep goats. It's not fairly administered in that way. Now, you're not going to have goats in some of the planned communities because they have private covenants and restrictions in their residential communities that don't allow for livestock. So if you want to live in a residential area with private covenants and restrictions, because you don't want your neighbors to have livestock, you have the option to go do that. But the problem lots are going down country roads here where one's zoned R1 and then across the street's A1, they're the same size. This guy can have his animals without spending $500 in 4 months of his time, and this guy, it's the opposite. So that's how we got here.
Well, so I had the thought that when I was working on Gibbs Road today, and I was right across the street from where I believe Mr. Ash built a couple houses over there. What, are they, what are they?
That's R1.
R1, okay, that's what I thought. What is the size of, what are the size of those lots? Okay, there you
1.5,
go. There
yeah.
you go. So, this is a prime example of those 3 houses over on Gibbs Road. Now, we got one guy in the middle, and he decides he wants to have, I'm gonna stick with the goats. He decides he wants to have 10 goats there, and his neighbors over there, now these are new houses, they just bought there. And so what obligation do we have to regulate and make sure that where people do buy, I mean, I understand property rights, but are we supposed to allow anything to what, I mean, I hope you get my gist here.
I understand what you're trying to say. They're new houses. They also exist in a, frontage on a country road. And to the best of my knowledge, there's no deed restrictions, covenants, or private agreements otherwise in there. So why can't they have a goat in the front yard?
Well, here's the other thing. Let's say that you got $5, and I got 5 goats for pets. My goat pets is just as valuable to me as your 5 dog pets are to you.
Oh my gosh, do we agree on something, Mr. Elliott?
And a lot quieter.
They're a whole lot quieter, but what I'm trying to make is, I don't know how you put a number on it. The person that's gonna put a number on it, in my mind, is like Alan said, is animal control. If you're not taking care of them, they're gonna come take them away from you.
And they do.
I know situations where they have.
And the additional thing there, even if you say, okay, you're only allowed 1, you're gonna have a neighbor that doesn't want that 1.
So if you have a neighbor, Steve, let's go a little further. If you have a kid that's in 4-H and he needs 2 goats and you only put the number down there for 1, now that kid comes fair time, he can't sell but 1 goat where he would be able to sell 2 if you didn't put that number on it. So it's tough to put that number on it because there's a lot of kids in this county that's got 2 or 3 goats behind their house that they raise for 4-H or sheep or whatever.
Pete, what you could do in that situation is, I don't like it that we don't allow chickens, because everybody will be able to have some hens, maybe not a rooster, but hens. But for the 4-H, if they're in a 4-H project or FFA project, then they come in with some kind of evidence from the school that they're in this project, that, and SUP is granted.
Well, you know how
But by
easy it
that,
would be to
not
get
if
that
they-
letter?
You know, I like that, I like the 4-H thing, and I think that somehow we can put that in there, that if you're part of that 4-H program, that you can be allowed to do that. I don't know if I was looking over here at primitive campground, and we made a provision in there for primitive campground that you could, the Boy Scouts were allowed to do that. You know, so we've allowed Boy Scouts to do primitive campgrounds, and so why can't we allow 4-Hers to have, I don't know if you call them pets, I don't know what you call them in 4-H town.
Projects.
Projects, okay, you can have a project.
But what if there's 3 kids?
Yeah, and then you have the situation,
Which I'm in favor of, but I'm saying.
you're carving out a special class too.
I understand it, well,
Yeah.
we allowed the Boy Scouts.
I don't think-
So we've
Right, I don't
already
think
done
you
that.
can- You can set one group of people ahead of the other group of people.
Right.
Could you do that?
Well, we
well,
did, that's the reason why I'm saying that.
I think it depends on the criteria, right? I mean, if it's not, you certainly couldn't do it for some kind of like protected class, you know, based on race or sex or anything like that. But can you do it when you have something like you want to foster young farmers? I think you probably could.
What about other nonprofit educational activities? Let's say that, Mr. Lipscomb, I'm going to use you as an example. Let's say that he owned a property across the street from his property now that was R1 zoned and 1.9 acres. So he does educational opportunities as a part of his operation, but it may or may not be 4-H. Let's say it's not 4-H. It's still an opportunity for kids. The next door neighbor, let's say, still looking at a goat. Either way, we're okay with it if it's a 4-H kid, but we're not okay with it if it's somebody else.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I have a piece of property and the people who live next door to it, they got 8 or 10 goats. I put up a privacy fence and I don't even know they exist.
It's fine.
How big's that property?
1 acre,
Is it A1 or R1?
R1.
R1.
Their property is R1, 1 acre.
I guess, I don't know if these are common sense questions or just more hypotheticals. How many people that come to the county to get into the, you know, there are, I think we heard last week, we bought for the charm and the rustic and the, well, I mean, yeah, it's ingrained in there. How many people ask, are my neighbors gonna have livestock? I mean, I don't think anybody who talks to the realtor and ever mentions if they go there and they smell goats and they see goats, they're probably like, no, I'm not gonna buy this thing either. And there's a common sense rule here too. The other, if we eliminate it, the other thing that, you know, we talked about the roosters, when I lived in Northern Virginia, I am one of those people, you know, you couldn't have roosters, and most of the places allow you to have up to 4 hens, but roosters, because roosters were a nuisance. But they did go through and kind of put a scalpel to it and give you some restrictions on it. So there's precedent for that. And I guess the last question I have is probably more for Mr. Wright. Are we getting, we were talking about special groups, like religious groups. I mean, in some cases, I know kosher law and other laws where people raise their own food, their own way they want to. Are we gonna infringe on any of that by doing any of these options?
I think that would almost be implicit, if not explicit, that would be an exception. I'll call it a religious accommodation.
Well, then anybody could do that then.
Yeah, I mean,
What do you have to do to prove that?
you have to say that you have a
Invite you over for dinner?
you have to say you have a sincerely held religious belief, and that's about it.
My idea is I think Frank can let animal control it, but
I'm in favor of that. I mean, if, I don't see any major pitfalls down the road from that anyway, and if there is, address it at that point.
And just one thing on Mr. Smith's question, which is, that area of the law about nuisance is a thicket. I would just, there's a distinction between a public nuisance, which is what the county would be concerned about, which would be a threat to health or safety, which is a fairly high bar, versus a private nuisance between 2 neighbors which is more about their enjoyment of their own property. I don't know if I've helped, but I just wanted to point that out. Make that distinction when we talk about nuisance in terms of the public sphere.
Well, let us finish here, and yes, certainly, yeah. In fact, I think maybe Mr. Litzko wants to make a public comment too, from what he sounded like back there. Any other questions or comments at this point?
My last comment would be maybe we could strike it, and if we end up having a problem, we go back and revisit it and change it again.
Okay.
I did, and I was on the fence about this, and I was thinking about it a little bit ago, but what if, and I thought about the next item on the agenda, and just kind of in a situation where you have townhomes that are deeded, and you have essentially a front yard that's whatever, 10 by 15, backyard similar, small lots like that. The ones over on Gibbs Road, like you were talking about. Front yard, backyard, totally different situation. For intensive livestock, which is regulated by numbers, typically per acre, there are setback regulations from boundary lines, streams, creek, well, maybe not boundary lines, but streams, creeks, and other obstacles and stuff like that. And that would be the only thing that I could see as being a pretty viable, easy thing is we end up with some townhomes in Madison one day. Somebody's got their Tractor Supply chicken coop in the front yard.
We won't be here.
Pass it
So,
on.
I just gonna throw that out there.
Other comments?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, my neighbors put a chicken coop up in the front yard, and so, I don't know, is that something that we should put in there as well, that you, if that's what you're gonna do, you can't do it in the front yard?
Go to Fairfax and Stafford and look how many chicken coops is in yards now, everywhere.
Yeah. And the rooster's immaterial, by the way. If you ever lived with a wren outside, it wakes you up in the morning better than any rooster, so. We're supposed to get up early. Yeah, that's right. Other comments? All right, so it sounds like we've got at least 4 or 5 leaning toward removing this. Is that, right now, that sounds correct?
Mr. Chairman, this one has been advertised for a public
Yeah,
hearing.
yeah.
And to be fair, we've advertised it before,
So
so, but if
before
you-
we
if
finish
you're, if
tonight,
you're not
we'll-
ready to act, just let me know.
Yeah,
But you can, if you want to, at the next joint meeting.
Yeah. Other comments, questions? All right, public comment. Mr. Resch, yeah.
Whoops. I'm not quite as tall as the other gentleman. I'm Al Esch. I'm from up at 4123 Lillard's Ford Road. It's complex, right? We think it's simple, but it's not. And I'll just tell you where I'm at with you. We talked about covenants and restrictions. I divide land a lot. And one of the things that I haven't done much of is putting those covenants and restrictions in, because so many of my customers come to me and that's the first question they ask. Can I do what I want to do on this little piece of land? And so that I've chosen not to do that, and that's why personally I'd be in favor of striking it. However, I do agree with some of the discussion that you guys had in that I don't think it would be out of place to ask that it's in the backyard. You know, you can have it, but we want to maintain some sort of order. Do you really want to go down Gibbs Road and have 3 goats in the front yard of the house? I guess, sure. You know, it's not your land, but it would be that if there was a restriction that I would consider putting, it would be that. That's all I have.
Thank you.
The only thing with that would be, not to interrupt, but the only thing with that would be, supposing my house, my drain field had to go all the way up the front, the house had to go all the way to the back. Now I got no place to put my goat in the front yard.
Or you have a 1.5 acre lot next to a 100 acre goat patch, and their goat patch is leaning over eating their grass, and you can't have 3 goats in the grass, but they're right there anyway. I mean, it's, yeah, we could hypotheticalize this thing to death.
Any other public comment? Again, checking, do we have anybody yet online? No? Nobody, okay, thank you. Any other public comment on this?
Mr. Chairman, before
Yes,
we
sir.
move on, I've been corrected. We will need to extend an advertisement on this one to move forward, because I will need to know your intentions for what to advertise. So I
Yeah,
cannot
yeah.
do so merely on, we might change something, we might not. If you are going to move to strike it, then I will publish that. If you are going to move to modify something, I'll publish that. So if you tell me your intentions, then I can advertise appropriately so we can take action.
Okay, well, let's do a straw poll right now, and we'll give you some guidance on that.
Mr. Chairman, before
Yes.
you do that, should we have hopefully a very quick discussion quickly about whether or not we should allow it in the front yard, or we should go with Mr. Elliott's recommendation that we don't do that because what could happen in the backyard? Is that okay? I mean,
My quick discussion.
I think Pete has a very valid point.
Yeah.
okay, I'm fine
Your
with
front
that.
yard might be
I'm fine with that.
half an acre, or it might be the whole acre.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, I believe if we go the striking it route is to eliminate all barriers and obstacles, so if, yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Make it as pure as can be, in my opinion, stated.
Okay, quick straw poll, show of hands, those in favor of striking it completely. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. I guess we're looking at Alan for instructions, prepare a motion to have it stricken from the ordinances.
And
then
that will
Jim
come
can
up
tell us
in,
he told us-
that'll come up in October now.
Yeah, so Jim can tell us he told us so when, when it comes back and bites us. Yeah. Okay, so guidance given, moving on to case number ZOA-05-25-01, Al Esch zoning text amendment, second workshop. Al Esch has proposed changes to Article 7, residential multiple family R3, in order to facilitate more orderly development of housing projects. All right, Alan, anything to add there?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So while it's been a while since we've looked at this one. The language proposed for changes in our ordinance has not been modified since our previous workshop. What has changed is Mr. Esch has done what we asked of him, which is to provide illustrations of what development looks like with the ordinance in place as it is now, and then what development looks like with the proposed changes for the narrower lots is the primary function of this change. And so I would encourage you to have the applicant walk you through what he's proposing and why this is beneficial, and we should consider it.
I just have a quick one here. So, and Mr. Esch can probably answer this as well. The density is gonna change, is that correct? I mean, we originally
you're-
said somewhere along the line, we're gonna have no more than 8 units per acre.
That's correct.
But that's-
So the yield is
Hang on, Mr. Esch, if you're going to do it,
Yeah.
microphone if we're ready for.
Yeah,
for
let's,
you.
let's go ahead and we'll proceed directly. And give you the floor and answer questions
Yeah,
and
I-
convince us.
For me tonight, more than anything, I am here to answer questions and have a discussion with things like Mike is talking about. Basically, you had asked me to come back with an example, and I used my farm as an example. Is this what I have in mind? Not necessarily. Could be, but it's an example of what we can sort of work through to think about these changes. What happens is when the lot sizes are so large with a large frontage, you wind up putting in so much street that project right there, as you see it, it's unaffordable. You can't build that. It just long and short of it, it can't be done. These are not Northern Virginia homes that are $800,000 or $900,000. So that is the reason to try to shrink things a little bit and still maintain all of that green space. If you pull up to the other slide there, Mr. Nichols, no, the one where yeah, there you go. Here you have 250 units, and yet you maintain a ton of green space that is untouched, and this project here is now affordable. Like that is really the bottom line of where we are with these changes. And
So-
Mike, what was your question again?
So, your change to the density,
not
You're
changing the,
increasing density of houses.
yeah, but not increasing the yield. So the totality of the rules, what are they in terms of, is 4 per acre, 4 units per acre, I
Eight, I
think,
believe.
or is it 8?
I believe it's 8.
So really, at the end of the day, you can't, unless you pack the whole place with townhomes, you can't yield 8 on that property. Like, it's just not doable. And I think that when you bring a project this size, there needs to be some proffers put in there. There needs to be some commitment to some affordable housing along with your single-family dwellings. I'm a single-family dwellings guy. I'm not much of a townhome, single-family, multifamily facilities. That's not really my vision or my goal. I think that we're better served with single families that people can have a little space of their own.
It says 8 townhomes or attached dwelling units per acre.
Yeah. So we're not up in the yield. So for an example, the 30 acres that is there R3, according to so if it's 8 per acre, I could put 250 units on the 30 acres as the rule stands.
Of course, right over here, it says 7.3-1. It says the maximum lot area should be 10,000 square feet plus 2,000 square feet for its additional dwelling. But I'm reading over here on this, what came through, it says, no development within the district shall have a density greater than 8 dwelling units per gross acre. I don't see that in this 7.3. I'm reading 2 different things here, both of them 7.3.1.
It's pretty confusing. When I talk to my engineers, for how it's written in comparison to some other localities, it was difficult to digest.
I agree, it needs some work. I mean, the difference I saw between the 2 slides, one had a lot more houses than the others, all
Yeah.
looked like to me. But, and then it does get into other situations of, percentage of open space, minimum lot.
Correct.
Like
Correct.
Mr. Snyder was talking about. And I do believe when you originally came in here too, you had mentioned possibly changing that minimum lot area.
Yeah, and I don't remember it's been a while since so we had single families. We proposed the 12,000, which if you go to the other slide, that has the lot sizes on it. I think he's in a conversation. If you can you tell me what those lot sizes are for the single family dwellings on what we proposed?
If I remember right, I think that it was the 12,000 square
Yeah,
feet is what was
12,000
proposed,
feet.
but just across the board and not increasing for additional dwelling
That's
units is
correct.
the difference.
Yeah.
And I didn't look into this a whole lot just because it kind of said you would provide a narrative, and I was curious to see.
No, so if I may, Nathan,
Sure.
we're proposing the 8,000 being the minimum lot size. You see that there on the single family dwelling would be the 8,000 feet. We had went back and forth at our last meeting trying to decide what we should do. But go ahead, Nathan.
In your red print, you're saying 12,000.
I am, and I had left
So
that.
you're backing off from the 12 to 8.
To 8. And what I basically am trying to do is I want to find a middle ground with you guys on what that number should be. I'm not stuck on whether it should be 8 or whether it should be 12. But I think if we're going to, I would rather the lot size be smaller and the green space be bigger.
Sure, yep. And I know, and just so picking back up on that kind of, and then so as I do go through the ordinance as well, there are some other general provisions. It is a little confusing, but sometimes I just have to read things more than,
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
But, And so, you know, I don't know how the all townhouses shall have a minimum lot width of 16 feet plays into, you know, the overall scope of what you're proposing as far as like development or referencing that project in Orange. I mean, to me, it seems like, you know, obviously, I don't know if anybody's done it yet, but we need to take some time, look into our existing ordinance, look into surrounding counties, what their ordinances, how they read, what your proposals are, and, you know, what the implications are. And
We pulled, a lot of this stuff was pulled from like Culpeper County's R2. That was what we had tried to pull some numbers from there and some verbiage to try to find a balance there. And I do agree that I have 12,000 in my red print. And again, I would really like some direction from you guys on, you know, can we get comfortable with 8,000? It's a huge ask. I know it is, and it's a lot to think through, and that was my reason for spending the money, to do some conceptual plans, to be able to look through it and see. And one of the things when I came in front of one of your committees was that I heard very loud and clear when some Board of Supervisors were there as well, was they want single-family dwellings. They are not in favor necessarily of multifamily or apartment complexes. And this would allow us to find some balance in that.
So if I'm reading this correctly, you've moved from the regular one of 61 single-family detached under the way it's written now, and it moves from that to 162. So you've added 101 units to that. So that definitely increases the density
Correct.
by over 100%.
Yeah, but I think it does it in a little bit more of an orderly fashion.
Well, I mean, it does though.
Yeah, that's correct.
I mean, almost 150%.
Yeah, yeah.
If I remember correctly, at the first workshop, you were also discussing parking, on-street parking. Is that what you were talking about?
I didn't want on-street parking.
don't want-
I did not
okay.
want any on-street parking at all.
So with this lot, single-family dwelling, your 8,000 square foot model, 65-foot minimum lot width. Are you envisioning parking within the house structure, attached garage, or what is?
So the way it's done over there at Orange, where some of this idea came from, so you put it in your covenants and your restrictions. There's no on-street parking. I saw a man, he parked a car, he had like a VW Beetle. He parked it sideways with his garage door, and then he had his two vehicles pulled in on his concrete facing his house. So the rules are no on-street parking. So he found a way to add his third car because he had an old car, and I guess his garage is probably full of junk, like most Americans do. And so he parked his one car in front of the garage door sideways, and his other two vehicles pulled in forward. So we would, absolutely, there would be rules in place if there's no on-street parking, and that you could only have a maximum 2 car, or whatever fits in your driveway. And their lots are 6,000 square feet over there.
Yeah, that doesn't mean we want to do that.
I understand that completely. I understand that completely. That's the point of the discussion.
Yeah.
So at the cost of infrastructure and cost of property and what it would take to build this, that first sketch that we looked at, this property is not doable.
No, it's not. That's the bottom line of it.
Is
And-
that
and
because of the private water and sewer, or is that, what makes that?
what makes that is you're putting in a lot more roads, you're losing a lot more green space, you're losing a lot more everything.
You are.
Well, if you look at the diagrams, there's several more roads in the second diagram than there are in the first one.
Yeah, but then the houses offset and take care of that. Here you got lesser houses and you're doing a whole lot more, and you're losing a lot of green space.
So I'm not seeing where we're losing the green space. Where are we making up the green space? Because it looks pretty similar to me.
Well, it's a whole big piece right here. That's a little teeny in that. It's a big piece right
It-
there.
it's-
Now you
it-
got more up here.
it's-
That's what I'm
it's-
saying. You
it's-
got more
it's-
up here.
It's green space per dwelling.
Oh, okay, well, if you
Green-
divide
green-
it by
yeah, green space per
162
dwelling.
rather than 60, yeah, I guess so.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
if you take the same piece of property,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have
no,
less
yeah.
green space
That's correct.
with the maximum density.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't,
My question, and I'm not in the trade, so this is probably gonna be a dumb one, but.
No, it's
um,
okay.
The diagram up top with the fewer houses,
Mhm.
my guess is the footprint of the house is gonna be smaller as well, so they're gonna plant trees and there's gonna have green space that's privately maintained versus, down here, I'm guessing there won't be much green space at all because the yards and the diagram with the maximum density is probably not much to plant a tree on or anything, or? is
Oh,
it-
yeah, no, there's room.
Okay.
Yeah, there's room.
So you're going for more communal green space versus
Correct.
privately maintained green space?
Correct.
I'm a little confused. You're talking R3, and when we read the statement of intent for R3, it said, an R3 zone shall, that's a mandatory word in our ordinance, only be established where public water and sewer facilities are, that means present tense, available. They're not available. Why should any of this be zoned R3?
I guess somebody in the 70s decided it was a good idea.
Well, it's the law now.
so you're asking to have that changed as well then?
No, not necessarily. Because there's 30 acres of this is R3 already.
I mean, are you gonna be, so if you do it the way that you're looking at now,
Correct.
would you be able to, if you didn't have, I mean, I'm reading it, but if you didn't have public water and sewer, how could you do it?
I can't.
Okay,
I can't.
okay.
I can't.
So the only way to do it now is to,
Is when water and sewer comes.
okay,
If it never does, then it never happens.
okay.
And that's one of the things in the broader sense, and we're just talking about this right here, but like in the broader sense of changing the verbiage in the R3, one of the questions that had come up last time was a little bit like, well, what about all the other R3 in the county? The very words that you just read are the checks and the balances that say that this won't happen because it can't unless water and sewer is there.
Yeah, nothing satisfies the terms and conditions of R3,
Correct.
so there shouldn't be any.
But there already is, so.
Fix that.
Yeah. It's R3 that can't be used right now, basically.
Correct. And I guess the argument could be made that most any is accessible if you're willing to pump it or do something or spend the money to get it there. So that could be the other side of that, I reckon, how deep your pockets are.
Yeah, it also says, careful design and construction of recreation and pedestrian circulation improvements, parking areas, adequate provision of usable open space.
Correct.
So all those are also part of the
Correct.
regulation, yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so your basic argument is essentially an economic argument.
It is.
If this is.
It is.
Yeah, and I understand that
It
from
is.
your point of view.
It is.
So our objectives and constraints are a little different. We're looking for explanation of why this would be beneficial.
Well, one
to
of
the
the
county.
one of the reasons to that, Mr. Chairman, would be that my argument to that would be this: we can go out here in the county and we can cut it all to pieces in 3 acres if that's what you want to do, or we can come here and we can wisely and in an economic way, we can put together a plan in an area that the comprehensive plan says that this is a good spot for it to be, and we can do what is best. So that those are the two ways that I see it. And so that would be my argument to that, would be that, you know, give me a spot here where I can put these homes, and I'm not going to go over here to along 230 and stack in a house every 250 feet.
So, can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sure.
So, Mr. Ash, would you propose maybe even like a subcategory of R3 that's in certain areas?
I would,
That's,
I would
for
be,
example, close to 29 or whatever it is?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, again, I kind of go back, Mr. Wright, to say that the checks and the balances in our county with our access to water and sewer and where the R3 currently is, if we don't rezone anything, where the R3 is it kind of becomes a moot point, because there's other R3 like a little bit scattered through the county. It'll never have water and sewer, not in my lifetime. And so therefore, do we need a subcategory? I'm not opposed to that. I'm asking a question.
Yeah, the majority of our R3s can't be used anyway because of the other requirements. It's got to be adjacent to R2 acreage zones, or within or adjacent to an existing town, village, or settlement. You've got the public water and sewer. It's also got to be adjacent to a major transportation route or traffic collector of the county. So, I mean, they're hemmed into the point where a lot of these that were zoned all those years ago as R3 simply can't be used that way.
I read that as well, Mr. Chairman, and which would essentially make this a whatever sort of nonconformance. And I'm sure at the time it was zones, it's entirely possible, or zoned R3, it's entirely possible that the sewer treatment plant had, had availability of services. Water was not down that far, certainly at that time. So, you know, I mean, but when you do read that statute as far as adjacent to R2 and so forth, that definitely muddied the water for me. And again, it just, you know, like, I think it deserves due time for research too.
One other quick little math on this is that, based upon the difference between 60 houses and 160, if you took those by, you said half of that house, say they had 2 kids, each house had 2 kids. You've moved up from 120 to 320. And I don't know if we're willing to accept that big difference with our school system as the way that it is, or if it ever will be. I mean, but that's just another quick little math on if you had 2 per household.
And I agree with that, Mr. Snyder. Those are some of the you know, things that we have to balance out a little bit. One thing that did surprise me, and I don't remember, Alan, what the committee was that I sat in when for the rezoning or whatever.
We started this in preliminary development review committee, PDRC, when we initially discussed the concept of a rezoning of this parcel from split zoned R3A1 to all R3.
Yeah, so in PRC, one of the things that came up there was somebody had contacted the school and had asked them about the impact on the school. And whoever had called over there, and I can't remember who it was, said that our kids have been, like, dropping. The numbers have dropped like 300 or 400 below what's, you know, from what it used to be. and that our kid attendance numbers in our public school system are dropping. And that surprised me.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it's, if we look at, we got a budget, you said that affordability is a concern of yours, it's certainly a concern of mine too. But from a different perspective, it's more from the standpoint of the physical impact of
Sure.
any kind of development
Sure.
in the county. And if we look at a $52 million budget, and the schools, 26.4 million of that, the schools, that's this year's budget, and the schools reported last year that they had 1,586 students in. And you're right, there are a lot of homeschoolers. That's a post-COVID thing when parents got to see what the kids were or were not getting taught, and sought alternative approaches. But with the 1,500 schools and the budget, we're looking at $16,600 per student. And the 1,586, from a standpoint of fiscal impact analysis, you need to see, rather than just do it on an average basis, you want to look at it incrementally. So what is the capacity of the school? At what point do we go over that capacity and have to start buying buses and buying portable classrooms or building new buildings that are also going to require sewer taps, which we don't have and might not have. So that's a real big issue. And then looking just at the budget of the whole, the 52 million, if we look at just the local component of that, because we get some from the Fed and some from the state, and if anybody believes that's going to hold true, that they need to be taken out to a padded room. So that's going to fall, and I mean, more of the localities' expenditures are coming up. We got almost $10 million when all the taxes are aggregating. You look just at the residential piece. So we got $10 million residential. We're looking from the current count, let's see what we got, 5,012 households. So look at that, the cost per household on an average basis, which is the best way to look at it. And so the household share of the total budget's about 10,000. The household share of just the tax contribution, residential tax contributions, 5,400. Average tax rate per house is around 1,900, so that's a heck of a shortfall that somebody else is going to have to pick up, somebody other than the 162 lucky winners of one of the townhouses. And so I'm really concerned about the free riders and who's going to pay for them, because we're looking at 50% of the population being at or around poverty or working poor. We're looking at 20% of the population being 65 or older, and that is a growing demographic. And so we're moving toward gentrification of those folks who can no longer afford to pay the taxes. And that's a real concern.
So let me ask you this question, Mr. Smith. You're a numbers guy. Let's say 250 homes get built out here. What if Madison got a hotel? What if we got 2 nice restaurants? All of a sudden, I know what you're saying. When you just figure the house, there's a shortfall.
Yeah.
But with some rooftop, with more gas being bought, with more people going to Pig and Steak, with more of that balance
And that's where you're right. 'Cause I'm looking
comes
at-
back some.
I'm looking at the fiscal
And
impact.
so I think we have to look at it as a,
Well, that's an economic impact. And we're just looking at the physical impact. And
Sure.
you're right, there is some benefit, but I don't know what it is. I hadn't
Yeah.
attempted to quantify
Yeah.
that, and I won't.
and I don't either, but I that's what I would encourage us to be able to look at a big picture and think about how we can find a balance.
Are you,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, Hannah, are you getting ready to say something?
I don't want to switch it. I've got a slightly different question. It's money related, but
Mine's money related too, go ahead.
and I won't hold you to these numbers,
Sure.
but if you change that density,
Mm-hmm.
right, between whatever it was 60 to 160, you know, some worry about affordable housing even within Madison County. Does it change your costs in terms of per unit what you sell it for?
was my question.
Okay, so.
Actually, mine was more piggybacking on that. It was, what's the difference in the cost to the buyer? Not as so much building it, but how does that change somebody buying that house?
Okay, so for an example, and correct me if I'm thinking wrong, but for what we saw through, I'll just give you an example of what we saw through 2020, and then I'll circle back around. So in 2020, when the money was flowing pretty good, in 2019, and things were rocking along, as I was building homes, this is the trend that I saw: the young couple that couldn't afford nothing other than rent bought a little townhouse. The person in the townhouse said, you know what, we got a little cash. And they moved up to a little place in town. The people that had a little place in town, one of those single family, they said, you know what, we have a little bit of money. We've made some time. They bought 3 acres out in the country. And that was the shift that we were seeing. And so my point comes back to when we do those multifamily and we do those apartment units, this is going to allow young couples that can't afford anything else, they can actually buy that house, that piece of something that's 16 feet wide and a little backyard, and they're putting $2,500 in a payment that is something other than giving it to the man in rent. And that would be my vision, and that would be my hope that we could provide a balance of giving these people an affordable place to live.
You know, while I was looking at those 3 houses on Gibbs Road, I was thinking to myself, I didn't get to start out in anything that nice. So I was thinking the very same thing. I mean, if I could have, my first house would have been something very similar to what that is, that would have been really great. But still, the question is asked, what would be the difference in the cost if you did 160 acres, 160 houses on that property versus 60? Does that change that?
So think about it this way. Build the amount of streets that you build and the infrastructure that you build, that number, let's just say it's, for an easy numbers, it's $1 million. If you lose those 100 units, you're still probably going to spend 900 putting in those same amount of streets, because there's a lot of units packed in a small spot of development cost. Does that make sense? So when you break that down, does that unit become, that unit sells for 300 instead of 350? I don't know that those are the exact numbers, but I'm using a concept. Sure. Absolutely. 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 And while we're using my farm as an example, I think I would love to steer it back to say that we could use this concept on any property that is okay to be R3. Like, we do get a little bit hung up that, and I may someday want to build that. I'm not arguing that, but the fact of the matter is, I would like to see it in a bigger scope than that.
We're sitting here chatting now. I remember when we heard PRDC, though, and no one can predict the future. No one can predict who's going to have the money to buy a new home in 2 years or 3 years or in 2 months even. But I think you'd said something about the market segment for probably buying this was 55 and over from Northern Virginia, and this is going to be more of a retirement.
I would love to build a community like that.
Yeah.
I would love to build a community like that. I don't know if I can.
Okay.
I don't know if I can.
And does that impact your financials? We're talking kids, and we're talking someone who's buying the first home.
Correct.
It's completely different than a 55 and older.
That is
gonna
correct.
dominate.
I'm going to suggest that more than half of the people that would purchase a home, even those single-family dwellings with are not going to have a child.
And so I guess, Jim, to your economic development standpoint, that probably doesn't look as good, does it? Or do retirees spend as much if they don't have a family, or do they?
Because
Oh, well, good point, yeah, okay. So then it's an offset on the cost of the economic, okay.
So to your point, the townhomes and the multifamilies are gonna cost us more than those single families. And so if we give some consideration to lowering the lot size on a single family dwelling, you're gonna see more single family dwellings than you are gonna see townhomes and multifamily. That is the basic premises of my argument, because for me personally, I would go with more single families and less to try to set it off.
And here's the other thing, if you got 60 and then you change it to 160, that's 100 more tax that you gotta invest in at 20,000 apiece.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I'll ramble on here for a minute. I've had some stuff rattling around. So, I think, Mr. Esch, so one thing, like, I want some time to research into this stuff with everybody's, both planning commission, public, or your comments, as a sort of basis point. I'm never gonna be sold on the idea that more people and more business is going to be a positive thing. You look at Northern Virginia, you got your example right there.
Sure.
Effective tax rate is really a moot point as well. You can look at those tax rates, but then you gotta look at the value. I know people, they were on 3/4 of an acre, they paid $8,000 a year, they moved down here, they're on 80 acres, they're paying $4,000 a year.
Yeah,
That's the facts.
that's correct.
So it's a loss,
Yeah.
but there's a trade-off there. I think there's definitely some things we can look at within the county on fairly sharing tax burden, that I think is a little unequally distributed right now. But to Mr. Smith's point, kids are, and I love my kids, don't get me wrong,
Expensive.
they're expensive for the county, for the parents, for
Yeah,
everybody,
they are.
the little boogers. So, and I am one of those people that does not currently, this coming school year, have my kids in the public school system. But, so, some mix within all of this, I'm sure lies the answer, but more people and more business is not the answer.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with that, Nathan. I think that I both farm and I do construction work. Those two do not mix well together. I would rather see us take some land that we have in our comprehensive plan already, develop it appropriately, and save some of those farms that you don't see a lot every 250 feet going down the road.
And I'm with you on that. And I think, like responsible development is sort of what I would like to see being the planning commission's objective and on the planning side of that as opposed to the reaction side. But I was curious, you were talking about, first-time home buyers getting in a townhome. We've had a lot of first-time home buyers that have worked within our business, and I've seen what they're looking at, renters and stuff. I have a lot of, and then personal experience as well. But I think, I'm kind of, and obviously the cost of something is a combination of what the market will bear and what somebody's willing to pay for it. I didn't know, you said it's not feasible, and I understand $1 million in infrastructure, round numbers on the road, that's either divided between 60 houses or it's divided between 160 houses, different burden put on each household, and how that translates. Yeah, I didn't know, but it's sort of like the end goal. Essentially, as the county, does the county have any sort of responsibility for providing housing that's $300,000 per house as opposed to $350,000 per house? I don't think so.
That's correct.
You as the developer, do you have is that your primary goal? I'm gonna say no. You know, you wanna build houses and make money in doing that. Maybe have a little fun while you're doing it, without a bunch of regulations, but, and so, so I didn't know, you know, as far as like finished home to consumer aside, I mean, obviously you could build one house on that entire parcel and sell it and make
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
So, you know, like, is it feasible? I don't know, but like, what's the, I mean, is the profit, my assumption would be kind of the profit per dwelling would be very similar for the developer.
Correct.
So really, it's the end consumer that essentially benefits or not.
That's correct.
And do we want to, you know, like, does the county have any responsibility in making that more available?
Probably not. I mean, or do we? I don't know. I think it's a good question, but Gibbs Road is a prime example. There's 3 homes there on Gibbs Road. One existed, and I built 2 others. Yeah, I built 2 others. Currently, 3 young families live in those 3 homes. The center one that existed is a girl that works at the country store, one of my managers. I sold her that home for $350,000 or $360,000. It takes everything those 2 kids have to hold it together. Like, it takes everything they have to make that payment. That's where we are. I mean, that's, and the amount of calls that I get looking for 325, 350-ish is unbelievable. And I'm just like, there's nothing out here. There's nothing here for these kids to move into. The 2 other houses, one, a parent or a uncle bought it for these 2 kids to help them get started. The other home, it's 2 kids as well, and they, she just became a nurse, and I'm not sure what he does. And again, $400,000, $415,000, $410,000. I don't remember what I got for. Those are, you know, everything a kid can do. 2 kids together can do to do that. And I feel for somebody like that, because if they don't do that, they're going to pay $2,000 a month in rent, and they'll never get ahead. So that, you know, that does what I propose. Is it a magic answer? I don't think it is. My reason for submitting that and having a desire to I want to see some changes. I'm open to what those changes are. I'm not stuck on what I proposed, but I would like to find some common ground.
I'll ask another question, probably coming from Northern Virginia, there are the mixed-use developments where, you know, the bottom floor was you know, Starbucks and the other things, commercial and retail, and, you know, there was a mix, what is that, just mixed, what is that called?
Mixed use.
Mixed zoning,
Yeah.
mixed use zoning. Is that what it's, well, so that's detrimental for your economic standpoint, like the studies from, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay. But from the, yeah, but from your standpoint, if we had, I don't know, I mean, I'm trying to think of something to help developers that can take care of the cost, because the cost is what we're clearly should be. Yeah, yeah. Well, but if it's retail, we could probably put a tax on it. I mean, I assume, right? Levy a tax on. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Mike, I want to know what your comments are, but Greene County's doing something very similar to what you're talking about. There's that one out at, what is it, Old Trail, or what's it?
Yeah.
Yeah, right out of King Family, like,
Yeah.
and it's kind of neat. It's like it's bizarre, but it's neat, you know. And Greene County kind of has some of that stuff going to the Green Terrace stuff. I was back in there the other day.
Yeah.
They're doing some of that in this next stage of development, and some is a little mixed in right now.
Yeah, and some of it's pretty nice.
Some
Like,
of it's pretty.
I wouldn't want to live there, but like, in you know, yeah, wouldn't be quite for me.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to live there either, you know. as a kid starting out. Like, I remember I bought my first house, I was making $12.50 an
Yeah.
hour. It was brutal. I worked
Yeah, but
nights.
as you were saying, Alan, we've had 3 couples, friends of ours, that sold, and there was no place in Madison. They're all in Green now.
Yeah. And you know, if we could, you know, I think Nathan asks a valid question, and I don't know that I've thought it through, and I want to think about it some more, but does the county have do we as a county have a responsibility to make housing affordable? I don't know what that answer is. I don't think it's healthy. While we don't want too many kids in school, like Jim says, I don't think it's healthy if the numbers in our schools are dropping. I don't think that speaks well for us as a county.
All of this.
If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, all this came up extensively throughout the comprehensive plan committee meetings early on. Affordable housing was something that was being pushed a bit by the state for us to look at. That came up extensively, the school system, the decline, and, you know, all of that. And there was some consensus within the county, and it was open to public comment and all this stuff.
The problem with affordable housing, the price of land in Madison versus the price of materials, can't build it.
Right. It's not, there's sort of no such thing. But I was just gonna, the only other thing I was gonna say is Greene County is in, from my opinion and outside observation, in serious trouble.
Yeah.
I think one of those things that you're talking about, one of those slides during the comprehensive plan was that slide that we had of cluster housing. And we didn't even like the slide. If I remember right, we took the slide out.
But Al,
It was an
you're
awful word, cluster housing, you know.
you're right. We had a town hall meeting this last week, and I had made a comment. I said, you know, no growth is a strategy. It's not one anybody in this room can afford, but it's a strategy.
But I'd like to go back to that. If we can, my main objective in thinking about changing these rules is that we can do some good development in an orderly fashion that is affordable. Like that's my bottom line.
And I will comment to that, the county does have a responsibility to facilitate orderly growth. That is inevitable.
On the back end of that, I'm gonna say, if this would be the place that we're talking about, if this was the place, we still have the same thoughts as to an extra 100 homes coming right there off of Fishback. When we just went through all that. Went through all that and think about another 100 houses coming off of that.
And I agree with that, Mr. Snyder. But the point that I get back to is that we have checks and balances that will absolutely 100% take. VDOT sets the standard. That's your check. That's your check and your balance is either you can do it or you can't. You see what I'm saying? I agree with you. I don't know that it'll work. I don't know if it will or will not work. But they have a criteria that if I can't meet, they won't let me put the cars on the road. And I get that.
I did like one of the comments made by a member of the public during the Madison Hills kind of Frost Fest hearing. Because VDOT is a good governing body of that. And anybody in the DC metro area, and this is what it made me think of, I think they referenced Charlottesville, but anybody in the DC metro area, which did involve some of my family, that spends about 45 minutes traveling 2 miles, can attest to how great VDOT is in there.
Quick side question, Alan, do we have any idea, Alan, do we have any idea where other R3 zones already are in Madison?
Yes, sir. If you look up on the screen,
Okay.
all the beige properties are R3 zones. They are all centered around the town. So if you look to the south, there's a little section here off of Courthouse Mountain. It's a big chunk of the resettlement area, which sure could benefit from some increased water and sewer capacity. To the south of Fishback is a recently rezoned R3 portion here, which is almost adjacent to the sewer plant, which is a little triangle there. You've got Mr. Esch's property, and then you've got, I believe this is a triplex down here off of Oak Park Road. So that's the extent of the R3 in the county. I am not aware of any. There is none on any of the zoning maps that I can find in any of the villages. So I think what you're looking at is the extent of it.
Okay, and those are within reasonable distance of the main highway. They are, looks like, adjacent to R2. The yellow is R2, is that right?
The orange is R2, the yellow is
Orange.
R1. So you'll see some examples of that over in resettlement. There's some blended R2 and R3 in here, some of
Okay.
which are split zoned.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of them up there that are non-conforming, shall we say, because they're not adjacent to R2.
I mean, you've got contiguous R3 properties that are then adjacent to R2. So I think that's within the spirit
Okay,
of
yeah,
of the
it comes
ordinance
down to that
there.
corner.
But you certainly have an outlier. And then when you go down to the south side of town, you know, you're adjacent to some R1 and some business zoning. Of course, outside the town limits, I speak not for any accuracy inside the town limits.
Yeah, and to Mr. Esch's point, the only benefit to the county that I see is potentially increasing density in these areas would possibly reduce the division of ag land into 3-acre parcels, except, as Pete's already noted, very few people can afford those 3-acre parcels either.
Well, this is the point during our comprehensive plan development discussions that Mr. Clatterbuck tried to make. And how we got to, in fact, I pulled it up because I was looking for it myself, so if you'll indulge me for a minute here. This is the section of our comprehensive plan where we defined our growth area. And we did this on the basis of, I'm going to use Mr. Clatterbuck because he led that argument, but others as well, that we generally said that we didn't want development. But if we had to have some, this was the area in which we would consider it. And so we put it in our comprehensive plan in defining this area. If you're looking at simply the ordinance changes themselves and you want more orderly development, there is an argument to be made for that, and I'm not giving an opinion on it because I've not analyzed everything. We're just discussion, but I'm just saying, like, if you're just looking at ordinances and you're gonna put something somewhere, how do you want it arranged? Later, we will discuss, you know, whether it's a good idea to rezone or not. I'm quite sure that that would come after this application is considered. But to answer your question, yes, these are the R3 zones, and this is where we said they belonged.
Do any of those have public water or sewer? The ones on out?
To the best of my knowledge, none of the resettlement properties, which would be the only real options, other than the south side of town. The ones on the south side of town might. There's two properties down there, but I can't say that definitively. But I know the resettlement ones do not, and the health department would love to see some public water and sewer there to solve some of the problems that they've had for sitting there for 70 years.
The sewer goes out 29, the food line, that's where it stops.
I just was unsure if, does it go along Courthouse? The real question was, were the R3 parcels here along Courthouse Mountain Road serviced by the public utilities? Because it's close to that corridor, but I don't know exactly where the line is. I guess I can find out. There's probably an overlay. The hydrants will tell me. I hear you.
Well, a piece of ground by the food line, yeah.
I would say no, Mr. Schneider. In fact, there's an overlay here we can look at up here. Because we don't see the water line, but we see the hydrants, which tells us what we want to know. So it looks like we have a single R3 parcel where these apartments are that has a water tap there. I don't know about sewer, but I assume that these have the public sewer as well along Main Street. But it does not appear that the one on Courthouse Mountain does, because your next hydrant goes this way, closer to the highway. So I assume that the line runs between hydrant 19 and hydrant 20 there. So we have one.
Yeah, that's fine. And one of the questions that I'd like to ask y'all tonight is, while we've proposed the 8,000 and we still had it in red in 12, does this body have a stomach for 8,000 square feet? Because if they do, then I would like to change that before we have our next meeting. I think the 12,000 is too big, but that's just me. I think if you go over there to Orange, those 6,000 square foot lots, they're full, and another 2,000 feet would help them. But yeah, they have nice backyards and room for a dog and a cat, and no goats, I don't think.
What was the difference in that, length of the
If you could pull that, I think we designed them 65 by,
They're 125.
65 by 125.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to 8, if I'm not, let's see, 65.
That's 8125. 65 by 125, so.
Yeah, so 120, I think, was probably what his number was supposed to be. So that'd be, the ones that were drawn on
But he's
the-
meeting setbacks. I bet that's what it is. He's meeting the rear setback, so we needed the extra 5 feet. Let me look at it to make sure that's right.
Yeah, that might have been where it got to.
Just if I was a betting man. Rear, that's what he's doing, that's what he's doing. He had to have a 25-foot rear setback, so in order to design a conforming lot with the minimum lot width that you propose, the smallest size that he could design was 8,125 square feet.
Okay, I got you.
So at 180, at that same lot width of 65 feet, it would go from 125 at 8,000 square feet to 186 feet for a 12,000.
Correct. And I think that's too much. One thing that it could stop you from doing, if you want to pull up the example there of the farm, he's doing math. Can you pull up the example of the farm again, please? Yeah, my property that I own. So right there, look on the, can you make it bigger, please, Mr. Nichols? Bottom one. So if you made those, if those were 100 and, what did you say they needed to be, Mike? If they were 186 times 4, you would never squeeze it in there. All of a sudden, you'd be down to one street, and it would be a tough time fitting it in there. I think the length that would be a little bit too deep. One of the main things that I was looking for out of this whole thing was to drop the lot width and to drop the lot size. We just cleaned up some of the other stuff, but that was the bottom line of what I was looking for in a single family.
I'm sorry, and just for general thoughts, so I don't know if you've done this, but if, existing regulation versus what you're proposing, lot width, size, do you have an idea, like a feeling of end to consumer home cost on that, on single family versus single family?
No, I don't.
Think maybe 20%, 15%? You can think, no, you don't have to answer.
Well, I'm trying to think it through. It probably affects the project more in an overall cost. It's not the area so much as it might be the size. Or the length that it takes to get it done, because you can look at some of those other spots. There would be a bunch of places where 180 feet or whatever wouldn't fit that 125 does.
Yeah.
And while 60 feet doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not, it does, in the grand scheme of things, it does become, does affect things.
Any further questions or comments?
So do I?
Rest did ask a question that
Yeah.
if we're ready to answer.
Oh,
If we wanted to take it down, if we wanted to entertain the 8,000 square feet.
Yeah. Would you be willing to consider that?
I'm not ready to answer that question.
Yeah.
I'll respond with another question. Why were our minimums set for where they were? Was it topography, or is it considering the other counties seem to have smaller, is it just economic growth, the other counties experience and lobbying? No term, but-
Perhaps one of your fellow commissioners can tell you, because I've not been around long enough to know the answer to that question.
In terms of wisdom, not years, Pete.
I would just,
I told Mr. Nicholson earlier today what happened on that situation.
Okay.
I would just say for me, I think it's really relative. I mean, safety, meeting like mission of the comprehensive plan and stuff like that doesn't really matter. There's people living in a 200 square foot mini house that are as happy as anybody else. I don't really think lot size matters to me, more so as the overall picture of responsible development with a safe and orderly manner.
And we could say, if we decide we wanna go that way, you have to understand that it could go back.
Sure,
It don't mean that
Sure.
that's carved in stone.
sure.
and so the question for us is, are we interested in this kind of density increase on the off chance that it might offset perhaps some loss of larger land parcels? Because that's, for us, that's really I think that's the bottom line question.
I think you're right.
And if it doesn't, if it wouldn't actually offset the potential loss of all those 3-acre lots being developed, I just don't know.
How do you know that it will?
I don't, that's the problem. In fact, I suspect that the 3-acre lots are gonna be so expensive that there are very few of them gonna be sold. The lots that I see houses being built on right now are generally existing lots that have been there for years. And, well, Gibbs Road, I think, is probably an example. And we've still got hundreds of A1 properties that are like 1 acre or half an acre all over the county, and people are buying them and building on them. So it's a question, yeah.
Chairman, I would say.
Yes, sir.
If we looked at this, and we did say, okay, we're looking at this size, like you just said, once you put it all together and we start seeing what we got, we can say, no, that's not gonna work, we can go back, so.
Correct.
Plus, it can't work right now anyway, because we
Yeah.
don't have the sewer taps.
Correct.
I don't think so.
Debatable.
We don't want Mr. S dropping in water.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for taking the time. I really
appreciate it.
appreciate the questions and everything like that. But we'll try to, Mr. Nichols and I will get together and I think I'm going to ask for the 8,000. And then we'll let y'all have time to think about it, and we have another round to go, which I'm okay with. And I appreciate the the time to have an open discussion and asking the questions. I really do.
Thank you, sir.
Can we talk into building a restaurant instead?
Yeah, a point of business, Alan. If this is, okay, he's busy talking. If this is the second workshop, Mr. Nichols, this is the second workshop, ordinarily, we would now be moving to joint meeting. I don't think we're ready for that. I'm not
If
sure.
Mr. Esch would like to alter the requirements from what has been advertised, let's say, then we are most certainly going to be kicking the can down the road to at least October, so that way we can meet the statutory advertising requirements, which is why we're also doing that for our livestock. So we'll make sure that we make the appropriate updates in accordance to what Mr. Esch would like in your discussion, and then we'll advertise it accordingly.
Okay, sounds doable. Thank you, sir. Any public comment? Everybody's leaving, okay. We do have public comment? Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Lynn Dawson, and I live over in Fox Ridge. So we're part of What Do the Neighbors Think of This? And this is kind of a shock. We saw a little bit of this coming, but I think until tonight, we really didn't understand what the potential impact of going to an 8,000 size lot would be. And I get that the comprehensive plan says to shove everything at Route 29. And when we did the survey about the comprehensive plan, I wrote extensively about how that leads to urban blight and traffic jams, and that's the part of Northern Virginia that we really don't want here in Madison. So I don't think having these tiny lots where we went from 60 houses to 160 houses is a good idea at all. I appreciate some of your thoughts on this, and it's complicated, I know, but I'm not a fan of the comprehensive plan saying put everything at Route 29, and then we're fine with whatever that looks like at the end. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment? Yes, sir. 2 public comments, great.
Glad I stayed. I'm not as tall as the other gentleman. So I want to backtrack a little bit because there was a comment made about, does the county have any responsibility to provide affordable housing, right? So I really think the question is, do the people that represent the county feel that they have a fiduciary responsibility? At the end of the day, right, if the planning commission and everybody else that's involved says, let's begin with the end in mind, right? What do we really want to accomplish for Madison? And then those that represent the county have to say, well, do I value that, whatever that is, right? And if you feel like it's your responsibility to provide affordable housing, then okay, well, what does that look like, right? I think if we, backtrack and say individuals have a responsibility personally, right, that they take care of their own finances in their home, right? I think it's awesome that Mr. Cowan explained that, when he bought his first home, he was making $12.50, right? That's great, but he was also responsible, obviously, with his money, that he was able to do that, right? So it comes down to an individual thing. Can individuals, afford I think you said 350, whatever they, bought, right? Can they afford that? Well, if they feel that they're being strapped, maybe that's not the house for them, right? That's a personal decision. So if we can't afford the 350, maybe we need to go get a 300, right? Or 250. Because at the end of the day, the financial maybe hardship that they're going through to afford this property, guess what that does for the entire community? It negatively affects it, right? Because now they can't spend money doing, other things like going to this event. Maybe they wanted to go to the tractor pull, but now I'm so strapped on this house, I can't do it, right? So there's potentially a fiduciary, responsibility for the county if you guys decide to go that direction. But at the end of the day, we have to take personal accountability and say, hey, what can I afford, right? So that's my first comment. The other thing is, I believe, and I don't know if anybody said it in this particular meeting, but you guys definitely laughed about it from a previous meeting, saying, hey, I didn't come to Madison for this. I came for this, right? The beauty and the space and the privacy and the not so commercialized and all that type of thing. But really, at the end of the day, we all have choices to make, and we have to be able to adjust, right? For an example, I don't have parakeets, right? But if my neighbor had parakeets and they didn't have them when I moved in, but now they have them, then guess what? I have to develop a relationship with my neighbor so we can figure out how this is gonna work, because they're not getting rid of their parakeets and I'm not moving, right? So, you know what I mean? So it really comes down to like personal relationships we have to develop. The last thing that I want to share is really what I would love to really know. I know the comprehensive plan is there, right? But really, what does Madison County represent? If you had to go up on the hill and talk to the Northern Virginians, right, or whatever, and they said, hey, you're from Madison, what do you guys represent? What can you put a stamp on and say, hey, this is what we're standing on. This is what we want. This is what we want anybody that hears Madison County to say, well, these guys do this, these guys do that, right? I think if that is very, very plain, when people come and they, reach out to Mr. Ash, say, hey, I want you to build me a house. He can say, well, have you looked at the plan? Like, is this the space for you? You know what I mean? Because I can tell you, when we came down, we had no desire to do farming. That was not the goal. Our goal was to have a space where we can be in peace and quiet and serene and enjoy Mother Nature. It's all matriculated to this, the agriculture stuff because of my daughter. But at the end of the day, I think we just all want to do what we want to do without negatively affecting anybody. Now, is that ever going to be possible? Maybe not, right? Because we're all individuals. You might not like my color shirt at the end of the day, right? And because we have this opportunity, because of this great nation that we live in, that, you know what, we can express ourselves in such a way that hopefully we can come to a common ground, right? So I don't know, hopefully something I just shared makes some sense and maybe trigger some other thoughts. But at the end of the day, what does Madison want to be known for?
Thank you, sir. It's kind of nice to have more positive public comment. All right, thanks. On the off chance, do we have anybody online that wants to make any? Okay. See, this is the kind of thing we should have public comment on. But. All right, if no public comment, any further discussion on this one? All right, well, 9 o'clock. Real quickly, Alan, can you run us through our upcoming events?
I sure can. So, well, I was trying to make it pretty, but later. So upcoming, we have a public hearing scheduled for the first Wednesday in September for Miss Ada Alamu, who is here tonight. So hers will be the only public hearing that we will have for September. Scheduled for October public hearings, we are going to have the livestock on lots less than 2 acres. And we will have the zoning text amendment for Mr. Esch coming up in October as well. Work is ongoing for the development impact ordinance changes in work, so I'm sure we'll have more on that in the near future. We'll have the second workshop for Mr. Lipscomb coming up the 3rd week of September. And we will likely move forward with Mr. Fuchs' application for a special use permit to get him in here for a workshop should the board decide to keep the ordinance in the livestock ordinance intact. The reason is because that application was tabled in such a time that the board will have to act on it. They'll have to act by November, so we've got to get Mr. Fuchs in here for his first workshop, so that way we can follow our own ordinances. One that we've not talked about yet, but we had preliminary development on, is a pending application for a new wireless communications facility. So we have a cell phone tower proposed on Frontage Road, next to MWP. Work on that is ongoing. We are awaiting engineering that will support the need for that tower, or not. We'll find out. But that is coming, and I expect that we will have that for the September workshop. I will send an email to everybody when I have a notification of a balloon test that will happen before then, so we'll get to see what it looks like and from where. So I'll let you all know when that's coming. But beyond that, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Zach, since you're now the standing committee chair and been promoted, what are your situation on being ready for that?
I think we put together, actually, maybe put together a pretty good packet. We should be able to have something presented next meeting. Is it helping enough right now? Nathan's still doing some work on it, but I think the next
workshop?
we could actually,
Okay, we can,
pertaining to the grade and agriculture.
yeah, right, the slope grade thing that we were working on. Possibly for the next workshop. That's been underway for quite some time, so it predates Alan, I think. Okay, that doable? Okay. Any other items, comments?
I do have some other general comments on that committee. I did send out to Alan a draft proposal for that ordinance for steep slope, critical slope, around 5:30 this afternoon, and just ask you to distribute it throughout the appropriate channels. And then everybody can review that, and hopefully it'll be a somewhat clean handoff to Zach. I'll leave him in a wet bag, but so just general comment that there are a few things that that I've been taking concern with for a while. As a member of the Planning Commission, essentially I've been having a hard time being in a position of known, what I would consider to be sort of known egregious violations of our zoning ordinance that I have made very apparent to, I feel, all appropriate parties to investigate, while sitting here and watching a large number of people go through our process for compliance. Lee Highway Nursery, Mr. Lohr, from all I can tell, moved a very large business to Madison with somewhere around 40 employees, created a new commercial space with my understanding of no building permits on A1 property, and is operating that business. And basically, I think, from what I can tell, there's no action moving forward towards any sort of resolution to what that is. Weaver Works, Carlisle Weaver, been operating for about 20 years on an A1 property, large office, many employees. Again, possibly no permits, I'm not sure. Certainly improperly zoned. Can't imagine I'm the first person to become aware of this. These are all negative tax implications. I know Mr. Lohr's case that is in land use, should be B1 commercial. And I will just say, in all fairness, I don't care for Mr. Lohr at all. I care for Mr. Weaver. I think Mr. Weaver's a great guy. But like everybody else that I've seen come through this process over the 6 years, or close to, that I've been sitting on here, they deserve to be treated the same way. They deserve to be treated the same way as everybody I've seen come through here. And that's not what I'm seeing. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
And And I'd like to add to that too, Steve.
Okay.
Nathan is exactly right. I had said something to somebody like this, and I was told to stay out of it. What do you mean stay out of it? They had a big business in Warrenton. You go down there to South Road, you pull up on top of the hill where they're at, and there's 40 cars down in the bottom down there, they're going in there every day. And they said they're farmers, what are they growing, malt? It's uncalled for. They're down on a piece of A1 running, selling plants, selling mulch, selling everything. If you're selling out of there, you're commercializing. And nobody's done anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Anyone else? Any further public comment? You're gonna say, okay.
I was waiting for your move to adjournment.
Oh, okay.
I think it stopped raining, we can all go home now.
Any, you mean it rain? Any further public comment? Okay, go.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?